I love banana bread so much. It's probably my ultimate comfort food. This is one of the staples in my kitchen. In this chapter, I'm gonna show you my absolute favorite banana bread recipe, and I'm gonna make two different versions. I'm gonna make one that's swirled with the Nutella and one that's plain and simple. Pure banana goodness. When I was growing up, I didn't get much sweets, but banana bread was the exception. Now, granted, it was made with whole wheat flour and honey. It was really, really dense. So as I've developed my recipe, I've gone a little bit sweeter and more decadent, and I absolutely love it. The first things that we need to do are preheat our oven to 350 degrees and prepare our pans. So for the 2 loaves of bread, I'm going to bake in 8.5 by 4.5 inch loaf pans. And the way that I prepare them is to grease them and then line them with parchment just for a little guarantee that they're gonna slip out of there with ease. So I generously grease the inside of the pan, and then I line it with parchment. The reason that I grease the inside of the pan and line it is greasing the inside of the pan glues the parchment down to the paper so that when you're putting your batter in there, it's not shifting all over the place. And what I do is I just press my parchment down into the pan, rub it against the sides, and then lift it back out. And now it's greased on the top side too. So I don't have to try to grease the paper, which just wants to shift around. You can also do this with like a cooking or baking spray, but I love the taste of butter. Put our parchment down in there, and that's it. I'm all prepped and ready to go. And that way, when I mix my banana bread, my pans are ready and I can slip the batter straight into them. One of the reasons I always make banana bread is because I always have bananas in the house. Because I buy a bunch of bananas, I don't always use them all up, and so I freeze them. When I freeze the bananas, I wait until they're nice and ripe, because if you freeze a green banana, it's not gonna ripen in the freezer. So you wanna make sure that you're freezing it at the point that you'd want to bake with it. And now we're ready to get baking. So I just need to weigh out our flour and then we can mix. So I need 400 grams of flour, and I always like to weigh my ingredients. If you don't have a scale, you can use the cup measures, but weighing is more consistent. And again, this is for the 2 loaves. So we're making quite a bit of the batter, but the banana bread is so good that I always like to make 2 loaves because one goes instantly, and then I always have one that I can either freeze or give away. The first thing I'm gonna do is whisk together my dry ingredients. I have my baking powder and my baking soda. I'm using 2 different kinds of leaveners in this because the weight of all of that banana, I wanna make sure that I get a really nice, lofty loaf of bread. I don't want it to be too heavy and dense, like the one I described from my childhood. I want this one to be a little bit lighter, not super, super cakey, because this is a quick bread, it's not a cake. And then, of course, some salt. The bread is not gonna be salty, but it perks up all of the flavors. And I whisk that all together, especially when I'm using baking soda. I wanna make sure that I'm distributing all of the baking soda into the flour. So I've mixed together my dry ingredients, my flour, my baking soda, my baking powder, and my salt. And now I'm ready to deal with my bananas. There's 2 different ways that you can deal with the bananas. Some people like to mash the bananas so that they have a little bit of like chunks of the fruit still in the banana bread. And other people like to puree them. I'm going to do a mix also of some of my frozen bananas and then some of the fresh bananas. I need a total of 2 cups. So I have a couple of the frozen bananas, and I just wanted to show you If you're gonna use the frozen ones with the skin on it, all you have to do is open up the top of it and then they just slide right out. Super easy. So I am gonna augment that with some of the fresh bananas. They have to be super ripe. What happens when a banana ripens is that all of the sugars intensify in the banana. If you use a green banana, your banana bread's not gonna be sweet enough. And so you want to make sure that they're speckly brown. So I have my masher. This is just like an old potato masher, nothing fancy. You can also do this with a fork. You don't need even a potato masher. And I'm just gonna mash them right in the cup. I'm not gonna measure the bananas until they're mashed up because I wanna make sure I got lots of it in there. You can either put it into a blender and smooth it out that way. I like to use an immersion blender and then just puree it. Plus, this is just fun. So now I have my pureed banana and I have my dry, and now it's time to mix everything else up. So I have my melted butter. If it's hot, it's fine. It's gonna cool down from the bananas. If your bananas are frozen, you wanna let them come to room temperature before you use them so that they're not chilling down your batter so much that it changes the baking time. So everything should be room temperature or a little warmer, including your eggs. And those go right into the bowl. And I always keep my brown sugar wrapped up so that it doesn't dry out. A nice bit of vanilla extract. And lastly, our milk. And then we can stir that or whisk it. And then we have our wet ingredients. We have our dry ingredients, dumping them all together, stirring it. Then I'm using the whisk to just sort of fold the flour down into the wet ingredients. I'm just stirring it until it comes together. I don't want to overmix this. Our batter is all mixed up and we need to get it into our prepared pans, and we also need to swirl it with Nutella. I want it to be a little bit liquidy so that it will go into my batter really well. I'm gonna put a layer of the banana batter in the pan, and I'm using about a quarter of the batter on the bottom of the pans. I'm gonna make one that's swirled with the Nutella and one that's plain and simple. So get our Nutella in there, and then I'm going to add the rest of it, making sure that both of my pans are filled evenly. Get all my nice batter in there. I smell all that nice butter and banana. Smells incredible already. And then add the rest of my melted Nutella. Oh, it's so good. And then the final touch of this is to give it a swirl. I'm just gonna use a knife and I'm gonna dip down into my batter and swirl the Nutella. So not only is it pretty, but I'm also swirling the Nutella into the bread so that every single bite of your bread will have some of that beautiful chocolate flavor. And that's it. So we are now ready to bake. The one last thing I'm gonna do is very gently tap these on the counter just to get any big air bubbles out and also make sure that it's settled into all the corners of your pan. So just a couple taps like that, and we are ready to go into our preheated oven. So we're gonna let our banana bread bake for about 50 minutes and come and check it. It should be golden brown and risen, and it'll look set on the top, but we have to check it with a cake tester to make sure it's baked all the way through. So one of the best ways to know that your quick bread is done is that you can smell it all over the house. It's crazy. It smells so good. Before I take it out, I need to test to make sure it's done because it may look done on the outside, but if a tester comes out with like moist crumbs on it, that's okay. But if it comes out wet, I have to let it bake longer. So let's take a look. Oh, they look great. So I have my plain loaf that's golden in color and it looks done. And yep, the tester comes out clean and then you know it's ready to go. So they look so great, but they're totally different. Even though it's the exact same batter, I have my plain loaf. There's absolutely nothing but banana going on in here, which I love. So that's great. But then look at this one. It has like all the drama of the Nutella swirl. So we're gonna get two such different profiles in the flavor and what they look like just by adding a 1/4 cup of the Nutella and swirling it in. So you can really change up the recipe, make it your own, get creative, do whatever you love, whatever your family loves, and make your own recipe out of this base. Okay, these have cooled long enough. Well, as long as I can possibly wait for them. So let's get them out of here and taste one. Because I lined the pan and buttered it really well, they just slip right out of the pan. Nothing's stuck. I'm going with Nutella first. Look at that. It's so pretty. And it smells so good with that banana and the Nutella swirled through there. And it's super moist. Oh. It's so dynamite. You get the butter, you get the banana, the swirly Nutella. It's just sweet enough to make it a treat, but you could so have this for breakfast or a school snack. I mean, it's so versatile. Okay, let's try the plain one. Look at that. Perfect crumb. Simple and pure, so good. So in this chapter, we made banana bread 2 different ways, with a nice swirl of the Nutella and then the other one pure and simple. So thank you for joining me. I can't wait to see what you're baking. Take pictures, tell me which one is your favorite, or if you decide to add other flavors, I wanna know what you're up to. So thank you.